Hello ladies, my name is Anna Bulczak. I am a midwife and a certified lactation consultant. The topic I have prepared for you today will concern death, crib death, sudden infant death syndrome. This is a very difficult subject, one that is hard to talk about and even hard to think about. I am currently pregnant myself and I already have one little one at home. So every time there are those worries that something bad could happen to the baby after birth. These kinds of worries always just come up, and I thought that it would be worthwhile, based on my own experiences with patients and on things I've already noticed in your homes, to address this topic from a practical perspective. When it comes to the issue of sudden infant death syndrome itself, there are a number of risk factors here. The main risk factors that we need to remember, and which are quite widely publicized, are, first of all, you should not smoke during pregnancy or be around others as a passive smoker, meaning you should not inhale nicotine smoke. Another thing is that you should not drink alcohol either during pregnancy or after birth. And you also should not lie down with your baby if you have consumed alcohol, nor should any accompanying person who shares the bed with you be under the influence of alcohol. These are the two things that are talked about quite openly and that we are aware of. However, there are a number of things that we tend to forget about. I think one reason for this might be that technology has advanced so much, so now we have many electronic options that allow us to check whether the baby's breathing is normal. However, in my opinion, this very often causes our vigilance to be greatly diminished. The first thing we should pay attention to when we come home with a child is the temperature of the rooms. And I think that, in fact, the main problem when it comes to our children's safety is precisely the temperature we have at home. Remember, the temperature at home for a little one in the place where the baby will spend most of the day and sleep should be 21 degrees Celsius. Here, I mean room temperature, because in reality, each of us has a different idea of what room temperature is, which becomes especially apparent when I'm on home visits, meeting with you after childbirth, and I notice this tendency that's still carried over from the hospital. It was warm in the hospital, so it should be warm at home too. The little one has cold hands, the little one has cold feet. I'll dress him even warmer, I'll warm him up even more. From the child's perspective, the first problem is heat rash, which simply appears. So just because the baby is overheated, they start to sweat profusely. Because of this, we often notice a rash on the child's body. However, another issue is that this is simply dangerous. If the temperature in our home reaches 25 degrees, 28 degrees, this mainly concerns apartments located around the fourth floor, or attics or sloped ceilings. In other words, all those places that are very exposed to sunlight and where it's hard to bring the temperature down. That's really the main risk, right? So the room temperature should be 21 degrees. In fact, it's even better to go a bit lower, right? So 19 to 21 degrees, that's the optimal temperature. Certainly a temperature of 24 or 25 degrees will not be appropriate. And here I want to say be careful, because very often outsiders start giving advice, right? Oh, the baby is sneezing. Oh, the baby has hiccup. When it comes to hiccups, in reality, hiccups are something that will accompany the baby because they were present even during fetal life. Yes, these are the moments when, for example, the child's father can put his hand on the mother's belly and feel that the baby is simply kicking. Very often those rhythmic kicks are nothing other than hiccups while still in the womb. So after birth, this is completely natural and is not at all caused by the baby being cold. So first of all, my dear ones, we lower the room temperature or start monitoring it, because some of you may not even realize that the temperature isn't normal, that it's not 21, but actually, wow, I have 25 degrees at home all the time. So that's definitely the first thing we pay attention to. The second thing we pay attention to is the mattress. We should pay attention to the mattress and its firmness, the one the child is lying on. And here, be especially careful with mattresses that adapt to the child's body, where, for example, the baby's head fits nicely into the mattress, right? So this is a mattress that adapts to the way the child is positioned. Comfort is one thing, but above all, we should be thinking about safety. A mattress for a little one should simply be firm. So we don't put children on soft bedding, we don't put children on couches or armchairs, right? All of these are mattresses that are absolutely unsuitable for infants. And again, in these cases, we have an increased risk of so-called crib death. Another issue when it comes to risk factors that I wanted to tell you more about today is the matter of what we will place and prepare for the child in the crib. Because the first thing is the mattress, but the second thing is what we cover the baby with and what surrounds the baby in the crib. Because if we actually have a lot of bumpers in the crib, right? Meaning mattresses around the crib, which are supposed to, for example, prevent the child from putting their hand through the slats, right? All of this is soft and often without certificates or safety approvals. This can cause a baby who is lying on their side to snuggle up to, for example, such a bumper, and in this way have trouble breathing, simply because they will have difficulty getting enough oxygen. Another issue is the matter of covering. Avoid warm comforters. Yes, all duvets and blankets must be suitable for newborns and infants. We have to avoid situations where the baby can cover themselves with such a duvet, because again, this will make it much harder for the baby to breathe. A good solution is various types of sleeping bags, because in this way we can be sure that when the baby moves around in the crib, they won't end up covering their airways. Another issue that is very important and unfortunately I see is very difficult to implement in our daily lives is actually the matter of how we position the child. And here, remember, current research shows that we should return to the so-called back-to-back or back-to-sleep rule. So we go back to lying on our back. The child should lie on their back after eating during the day, and for sleep the child should be lying on their back. The little one should not be lying on their side. When the baby is lying on their back, we have the assurance that the child won't come into contact with any surfaces that could make it harder for them to breathe. In a situation where the child is on their side, there is a risk that in a moment of our inattention, the baby will roll onto their stomach. This could cause their face to snuggle into a pillow, into a mattress that is too soft, into a comforter, or into a stuffed animal. So in reality, this is a situation that is truly dangerous and we should avoid it. And this is where parents most often ask, what about choking? What about aspiration? So here, remember that babies have natural protective reflexes. So at the moment when food contents from the stomach start to come back up, the baby will actually have a natural reflex to turn their head. So we come back to the back position, lay babies on their back. This will definitely reduce the risk of crib death. Remember these factors because they are simple things that you can take care of yourself. And this technique is not always necessary. However, let's remember that the factors I mentioned are just some of the factors that we can influence. If your little one was born with a low birth weight, if your baby was born prematurely, or if there were any problems during pregnancy that occurred and we are aware of, then it is indeed worth paying attention to other ways in which we can protect ourselves from this syndrome, from this very difficult, hard to predict situation. I'm leaving you links in the descriptions. What else can we do about the risk of crib death? I'm also referring you to an article I wrote. I'm waiting for your questions, for your comments. Thank you for your attention. Best regards. Bye-bye.